Today I thought I would do a gear update, talk about what's new-ish in my setup, what I'm currently shooting my videos with, maybe do some mini reviews on things. I also have a photography nightmare to share with you guys. A story of something that happened to my gear that is possibly the most horrific thing that's ever happened to anyone's gear. Ever. So be sure and stick around for that. So the biggest change in my setup recently has been my main camera, which is now the new Sony A7S III. If you follow mirrorless camera news, you know how insane this year has been for mirrorless cameras. We got the new Sony A7S III, we got the Canon R5 and R6. If you haven't heard of the A7S III, this camera was rumored for years. And it was like every Sony shooter knew about it, knew that this camera was supposed to be coming down the line. The reason it's such a big deal is because its predecessor, the A7S II, blew everybody away with its video capabilities, especially in low light. So the idea was, if the A7S II was so groundbreaking and it was released years ago, what would a modern, updated version of that camera be like? So you might be wondering what makes the Sony A7S III so special. For starters, it shoots 4K video at 120 frames per second, which is huge for me. I use 120 frames per second to shoot so much of my travel videos, especially wildlife or anything in motion. This thing is also a low light video beast. It does so well in darker environments. And this is largely due to having a 12 megapixel sensor, which isn't something you'd usually want for photography because fewer megapixels means a smaller resolution of the image. Like, you won't be able to blow it up to the size of a billboard, but a lower megapixel sensor will have less noise in low light conditions, which makes it amazing for low light video. It also has a flippy screen, which is so amazing, especially as somebody who is often behind the camera and in front of the camera at the same time, like taking photos of myself. And the autofocus eye tracking is insane. That is probably what surprised me the most with the upgrade from the A7 III. I'm going to move on because I could spend forever talking about this camera. If you'd like to see a full review, dedicated video on it, let me know. The next new thing I'm using is the Sony ECM B1M mic, I think it's called. And something I love is that it's powered off of the camera, so it never needs to be charged. I don't ever have to worry about it dying on me or going to film and realizing it doesn't have battery. And it also connects to the camera through the hot shoe, so it doesn't require a cord to like wrap around and into the mic jack. I'm super happy with it so far. I believe it's only compatible with Sony cameras, but yeah, I think the sound quality is really good. It's very similar to my Rode mic, so I would also still highly recommend the Rode shotgun mics as well, especially if you aren't a Sony shooter and this wouldn't work with your setup anyway. I've added 2 new lenses to my setup recently that are very different from one another, but equally game-changing. The first one is the Sony 16 to 35 millimeter 2.8 GM lens. This is an incredibly popular lens, and I have heard so many people rave about it over the years, but for some reason, I just thought it would be so not versatile. And I was so wrong because I have this lens on my camera constantly now. The focal length is actually very versatile. The 16 millimeter ultra wide end is great for landscapes, interiors, but then when you go to the 35 millimeter end, it's really nice for more of the day-to-day stuff, environments, shooting people. I love it even more than I thought I would. However, I want to say, if you're interested in this type of lens, Tamron makes a 17 to 28 millimeter 2.8 lens that's also really great. I have their 28 to 75 2.8, and it is probably my most used lens. I've raved about it before. And their 17 to 28 lens is significantly cheaper. You do lose a little bit of the focal range, but it's definitely worth looking into as well. The other new-ish lens in my setup is the Sony 100 to 400 millimeter GM lens. I call this my Yellowstone lens because I bought it for that trip. I didn't have a super telephoto lens, and I knew that I wanted to be able to shoot wildlife on that trip. This lens is beautiful. It creates gorgeous images. It's enormous. It's heavy. It's big. You don't ever want to take this anywhere that you don't specifically need it. But when you're in the right place, you have the wide open space of Wyoming at your feet. This is incredible. And I actually found the focal length to be quite versatile in wide open spaces, which I wasn't expecting. Like starting at 100 millimeters sounds like it's really zoomed in, but it's not. I was able to shoot a lot of things that still felt pretty wide at 100. And then 400 millimeters is pretty zoomed in. However, not always. I was kind of surprised at how short it felt sometimes when I was out in like big open fields of Yellowstone. It still worked for me, but I do think at some point I might also get a teleconverter to go with this as well, just for those times where I want that extra reach. Let's talk about backpacks. I love backpacks. There are two main packs that I'm switching between right now. One of them is the Peak Design 20-liter everyday backpack, and the other one is the Wandered Provoke 31-liter backpack. Now, if you saw my video back in the spring, you saw me raving about my 21-liter black Wandered Provoke backpack, and you might be wondering, Allison, where is it? Well, buckle up, because I have the most horrific gear story of all time to share with you. Okay, I have to lay a little backstory here for you to really understand this scenario. There's a room in our house that's kind of just an extra room. It's not used for anything specifically. No one really hangs out in there. There's not a lot of foot traffic. So it's a place that I often end up dumping a lot of my gear. And a few months ago, I left my black Wandered backpack that I was using before in that room with everything opened up. So I had the back unzipped and open, and I even had the interior zips open. And I was kind of just using that as like an open everyday gear storage case, just like kind of taking things in and out of it being opened up in that room. Okay, switching gears, during this same time, my cat got really sick. I actually ended up taking her to pet emergency in the middle of the night. She was on all kinds of meds. She's totally fine now. It was nothing life-threatening. She just had a rough couple of weeks. Okay, so here's the scenario. It's been a couple of weeks. I haven't shot anything. I go into the spare room and I grab actually my 16 to 35 GM lens to put on a camera body. And I bring it out to the living room and I'm about to put it on the camera and I look at the lens and it looks like something has been spilled on it. And I'm like, what could that have been? So I smell it. The string of profanities that tore out of my mouth as I raced across the house to look at my gear bag. My cat, when she was sick, climbed up onto my gear bag with all my gear exposed, like everything was unzipped. Her little paws were on my lenses. She urinated all over my gear. You know all these little cracks and crevices that all of your camera equipment has? Soaked in urine. I cannot remember a single time in my adult life or even like my teen life that I cried over an item like something breaking or something getting lost. I bawled my eyes out. I was hysterical. And I know my cat did it because she was sick. She had a UTI. She didn't know what she was doing and it was me who left the gear out. But to be fair, my cat is relatively unproblematic. Like she doesn't tip over water glasses. She doesn't scratch furniture. She doesn't really get into things. She uses her litter box well. So I've never felt like I need to worry about my things, like to protect my things from her. I guess she's officially passed the unconditional love test because if there was ever something that would make me execute her, that would have been it. The backpack was ruined. It was not salvageable. For a minute, I was like, no, I can throw it in the washing machine. It was just, so this incident happened the day before I was leaving for a week-long trip to Yellowstone, and I didn't have an extra backpack. I only had one backpack and it was in the trash. I bought the Peak Design 20-liter everyday backpack. I was already familiar with this. I know a lot of people really love this bag, but I just wasn't sure how I felt about the side access because unlike more traditional camera backpacks, it doesn't just unzip on like the back or the front and open to one big flat compartment. It has two large flaps on either side that unzip for more of a side access setup. It's very unique. And I was a little surprised to find that I really, really love this more than I thought that I would. The side entry design does make accessing gear really easy, and the magnets. There are so many magnets on this bag. Like this little thing has a magnet in here. Something that's genius is the back straps have magnets, so they like magnet flat to the pack, so they're not like dangling around when you're just carrying it. It also has a pass-through spot back here so you can slide it over your luggage, which is the one thing that the Wandered Provoke doesn't have that drives me nuts. And then as for the Wandered Provoke 31 and how I ended up with 2 backpacks, when I got home from my trip to Wyoming, there was a box waiting for me with a note from my cat apologizing for ruining my backpack. Basically, my husband saw how distraught and hysterically upset I was about the whole situation and felt so bad for me that he surprised me with a replacement bag, which was really sweet of him. And I actually have found that I prefer the 31 liter size of the Provoke over the 21. My 21 always felt just crammed full of stuff. I have so much more room in this size. And what I like about this style of backpack, or what's unique to me about it, is it has this expandable roll top. So you can put a ton of extra stuff up in this section, like any of your extras that you're taking with you for the day, like a jacket or snacks, headphones, anything you would take like on a flight that you would want access to. You can really put a lot of extra stuff up here when it's expanded. I also just think it's a really good looking bag. I think it's one of the better looking photography backpacks on the market. I get compliments on this bag all the time. It is a little bit dirty, but to be honest, that's what happens when you use your stuff. It's something that I've learned to just let go of, is keeping everything super pristine. Like if you're out in it, shooting, running around, traveling, doing your thing, your stuff's gonna get dirty. That's just what it is. So that is my gear update, the newer things I'm using in my setup. I'm going to have everything that I talked about in this video listed and linked in the description. If you're using anything new, let me know what it is down in a comment below. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you know when new videos are posted. Before I go, I wanna say thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. I love Squarespace. It's where I built my website, and it was hands down the easiest website building experience I have ever had. It's an all-in-one platform, so they handle everything for you. Getting your domain name, hosting your site. They have award-winning templates that are so beautiful. The hardest thing about building a site on Squarespace is just choosing which layout to go with, because you're gonna wanna choose them all. Head over to squarespace.com to sign up for their free trial. You get to choose your layout, design your site, get it looking exactly how you want it to. And then when you're ready to launch, visit squarespace.com/Allison Anderson to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. I hope you all are doing wonderfully, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.